up a seat at the bar to join us for another episode of McAnally's Pubcast, a podcast exploring the fun and fantastical mind of Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files series. Hosts Tanzan, Jess, and Maggie bring you another round of literary analysis on this immense, immersive, and colorful environment inhabited by Harry Dresden, the world's only licensed private investigator and professional wizard. Join an active and engaged community of new and die-hard dedicated fans focused on the fabulous themes, theories, characters, context, lore, and more. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Podcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 12.11, The Game, where we are covering the novel Blood Rites. My name is Tanzan, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
There's two kinds of people in the world. Winners and losers.
Chapter 15. Lara has Dresden and Thomas held at gunpoint, whom we discover is Thomas's older sister. Thomas pleads for her to help him with his struggles with the Raith household, but Lara is more inclined to remove Thomas and Harry from the equation with her pistols.
Egads. Not just older sister, but oldest sister. And also, older sisters.
Is it oldest? I don't think that that's confirmed. It's just an elder sister.
She just says baby brother. Leave my baby brother out of this.
Yeah. So he goes through a whole lot of, ooh, she's hot. Wow, she's sexy. Gee, how did she catch up so fast? Ooh, don't get shot.
Fair enough.
But really, all I came up with, is Romani really your last name? Married name, briefly. So how brief was this brief? Did she divorce him? Did she eat him? Did she just want the name? Like,
He just happened to die a couple hundred years ago, okay?
Well, that wouldn't necessarily be briefly, though, but I just,
Maybe they were happily married for like 100 years.
That could be brief in the period.
Yeah.
All perspective.
Okay, yeah, fairly. Fair.
For
Or
a
it could have
vampire,
been, like a 1 week Vegas adventure.
as we are learning.
Woke up and went, shit.
Yeah. Well, happens to the best of us.
I really like how Thomas, in this situation, is just like, oh, for the love of God. Which is just like the natural typical that everybody uses. But I find in a lot of like supernatural things, they always seem to like to make a big deal out of that. Like the demons and the devils are never just going to say, oh, for the love of God. You know what I mean? They're
The
going to be
power
like,
of Christ compels you, hiss.
yeah, exactly. They're going to be like, oh, for the love of the devil. Or, you know what I mean? Or they just won't use because they don't want
Stars and stones.
Yeah, well, even that, though, at least has its own sort of unique thing with it. But just
Those
how...
pluralized gods, or
yeah, even that. Yeah, even in Jackson it makes it a little bit. But just, yeah, again, it's just that whole point that I'm like, this is the normal, natural speech that we use. So, of course, even Thomas is growing up as an American vampire. He's just going to be like, oh, for the love of God, right? It doesn't have to be some hang a big note on it that, a vampire don't talk like that.
He's not putting his full faith in God behind the...
Or whatever, right? Exactly.
Could you imagine, though?
Yeah.
You just use the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah, right. Like, I just... Instant zap, like instant thunderbolt or lightning bolt or whatever, but yeah.
You are crossing lines you don't want to cross, Tommy.
Right. But yeah, as he makes this, God, would you just shut up?
I will say, Lara, who will become a huge character in the series, it's a really perfect introduction. Like, to really meet who she is now in these next few chapters. It's great. Like, yeah, welcome to the team. Hi, nice to meet you.
Right. Yes, it again, this knack he has for introducing characters with a very...
Wap bam aloo wap, a wap bam boo.
Yeah, but a very succinct, like, this is very much who they are without having to put a ton of, scenes or expositions or whatever, right? You meet someone, you always get a really good gist right away of what this person is about and whatever, right? So, super hot sex goddess, gotta watch out for that. Also, super deadly, don't piss her off, don't mess around.
She's in super lacy things and heels. Where was she keeping those guns?
Right.
Jack Harkness wants to know.
Right.
And she's so gorgeous and so beautiful. Really laying on the vampire whammy.
Harry has to tell her, yeah, please turn off the come hither whammy. Please?
Please? Yeah.
Please.
Which would be a very, I would say, that would be a complicated situation to have somebody holding a gun at your head and being like all sex and everything and be like, hello, hi.
Yeah.
I will shoot your brains out, but you're so turned on right now.
Yeah, right? That you can't, yeah.
It's a confusing moment for you. Sorry about that, bud.
Lara recognizes Harry as the wizard, not the PA, at least at this point. And tries to shoot off part of his ear.
Harry Dresden.
Or does.
Does shoot
try.
off part of his ear because he's cracking wise-ass jokes at her,
Yeah.
being a bitch, so she shoots him, which is also very fair. Harry needs to learn.
Yes, and again, right? He's like...
No games and no sarcasm when it comes to the brother.
Right? Well, especially not when you don't know what's going on about, right? Not first impressions, Harry. Don't. But yeah, I like how Thomas tries to insert, and Harry's just like, shut up!
The grown-ups are talking right now,
right?
Thomas.
Like,
you stay on the ground.
He just shut the... Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and Thomas tries to, like, at least get himself or in the way to not have Harry be killed. Why not kill him? 1, death curse. 2, I guess he's got his personal reasons, which he hasn't really revealed yet.
To
Yeah.
Laura,
To-
as far as we know, it's because he wants Harry to fix Janossa's problems. He's a friend of his.
I hired him.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, is that we're getting a bit more of a hint here than we have, so we know, like, Janossa's like, I don't know what's going on, maybe there's a thing in Janossa's, like, there might be all this pornography, conspiracy thing going on, but now that Lara, now you got me, is suddenly like, you're interfering, this is what, Harry's like, I nothing to do with White Court, like, I didn't want to, like, I just, you know, and then yeah, Thomas is like, I have personal reasons, and you're like, wait, what? Like, again, up until now, I just thought it was exactly that you have, and again, not entirely unreasonable, that you sexy, sex-feeding succubi and incubi would happen to know, be friends with, be in the circle of a porn producer, right? And you're like, hey, he's a nice guy, I've liked him, I've known him a while, shit's going down, you're an investigator, hey, right? Like, all of that makes perfect, you know? So now all of a sudden you're like, wait, what personal reasons other than just being friends with kind of Harry and Janosa?
Well, I didn't mention this, too. Harry's all, I didn't want to get involved in any of the White Council, White Court
business.
bullshit.
You know, every time I hear White Court, I get like I hear Night Court and like that.
I like Night Court. Good old Harry Anderson.
Actually, I'm aware of that show because I brought it back.
Remember the one with the
They
orangutan?
did.
They did a reboot, yeah. That's
Oh,
why I'm
really?
aware
I
of it.
haven't watched the reboot yet. But
Oh, I did not know that. Is
it's
that
Harry's daughter.
Oh.
That's another Harry.
Well, Harry Anderson was the
judge.
judge. I think that was the actor's name. I don't know.
Anyways,
But yeah.
I remember the one with the orangutan.
Harry didn't want to get involved in any White Court problems, except, as we've already mentioned, you fully knew that Thomas of the White Court was asking you to get involved, instantly recognized Lara Raith being on the set and being like, that's White Court, or not knowing she was a Wraith in the moment, but knowing
Yeah.
it was White Court, and instantly pegging Inari as well and being like, she's not fully vampire, but clearly not fully human either.
Yeah, he's not quite sure because he's like, he didn't get the same,
It's not
like,
quite the same sex.
knock you off your feet that Lara gave, but wait a minute, this is also
Still
a
some
little
supernatural.
sister, like...
So I'm just saying, if you show up someplace and you're like, White Court, White Court, White Court, I did not know that I was in White Court territory. What the hell,
Okay,
man?
but granted, in whatever portion of this timeline, whether it's been 2 hours or 12 hours, he just found that out. Because, yeah, Thomas asked him, but he only met Inari when he got back to set. She wasn't there this morning. And then he met Lara immediately after. So he has only just found out that there are more whites involved than just, right? Like,
Well, and as far as Harry's concerned, he's hired to protect or like to figure out what the curse that's happening with around Arturo.
yeah.
He's not actually involved in the business side of it at all. He
No.
really just wants to do the curse part.
But I get that he sort of hasn't had enough of that information for long enough to really put it together to know that he was, you know
8
what I
hours
mean?
on set.
Okay.
But yes, okay. He's still a little bit, not naive, but a little bit just over angry. And it's,
Maybe,
you've
like,
had a
yeah,
couple
like-
hours to think about this. You pegged together the whole situation as you managed to do CPR for Giselle this morning, and now you're like, have had 8 hours on set to just be like, no, I've got no more thoughts about this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and that. So yeah, from that point of view, I can see how that kind of puts it together a little bit. You would think that now it's starting to connect. Like, Having said it, maybe he didn't get there on his own immediately. He's, busy watching out for anything else to happen. But again, as soon as she shows up and says it, you think that, it'd be a little bit more of a wipe. Like, oh, shit, I am in the middle of something, White Court, am I? As opposed to just like, I didn't know what.
Leave me out of it.
Like, I didn't come here for that. But now that you mention it, actually, it makes it really obvious. What the fuck? But yeah, we don't get that.
And Lara does mention here, too, she's like, Arturo's independent streak is an internal matter of the White Court. And that's like...
That, to me, says a lot.
That is insane information. How is Arturo a part of the White Court?
Yeah, and that he does. Which, again, fine. Maybe we rack it up to, like, adrenaline and heat of the moment. She's just, like, buzzed his ear with a bullet. Maybe it's taking him a minute longer to put things together through fear or whatever, But exactly, like, as I was reading that, I'm like, hello, big blaring... up in lights,
And he kind of knows, because he knows, like, Thomas has been holding back information. Like,
well,
but this is definitely, like, the big reveal. You have been.
That's, exactly it. Bit by, like, every step of this thing, there's, like, a little bit more and a little bit more. And so exactly, first Lara shows up or whatever, and then, White Court stuff, and wait, Genosa's involved in a wait, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and Thomas... too, I mean, Harry has every reason in the world to be mad at Thomas, because Thomas turns to Lara and is all, oh, this is a tempest in a teapot, which is just saying you're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
And, no, actually, this seems pretty huge, dude. What's going on?
Well, yeah, I can see, obviously Thomas is trying to downplay it and
maybe,
not get
but
out
it
of
still seems like just so, this is why no one trusts you.
Yeah, and this is, I think, part of where she gets in, like, now you're suddenly trying to, but, okay, so, after she zaps his ear, and she's like, I'm in no mood to play games. He's like, point taken. She's like, lovely, she said, but she didn't lower the twin pistols. The autumn's evening breeze, blue dark Darth here, blah, 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 blah. Harry, Thomas said, this is my oldest sister, Lara. Lara, Harry Dresden. A pleasure, she said. Thomas, step out from behind the wizard. I don't want to get one of these rounds. I don't want one of these rounds to take you if they go through.
There you go.
So... that was the part I was looking for. I was like, I like how she's just like, this is like the concern and the whatever, right? Like, just the cold-blooded whatever, right? She's just like, Thomas, just want to move over, because if I, end up having to shoot Harry, I don't want to accidentally shoot you through. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, no, Thomas, stay where you are. But again, just that supreme casual. And the other thing I always find interesting here is that the way they go from, like, that 1 second to being like, get away from my brother. Like, don't even, right? She's just like, why are you attacking him? And he's like, it was a slow night. There was no one else. And she's like, bitch, right? Take me seriously. And be like, get away from him. Like, don't want to hit you accidentally. To automatically being like, oh, you're doing shit. I'm just going to kill you now, too. And again, I was like, wait, what? But again, from our perspective, I was like, you're so much like big sister, protective.
It is quite a bit of a switch.
This is going to be inconvenient. No, just fuck it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but yeah.
Well, and I don't know if it speaks more to her, like, being volatile, or if it speaks more to, like, the danger if she follows through, like, fuck it, no, I'm just going to kill you now, because that means I'll be dead if I help you.
And yeah, and I think a little bit more, like, I don't even think it is exactly, like, volatile. Like, that implies more, like, passion and caprice or whatever, right? But exactly, she's just very matter of fact, very methodical. Number one, my skin's more important, and if you risk tipping the boat at all, I'm gonna just dump you out now instead of, I'm not even gonna wait to see if it causes a ripple or not, But, this whole thing where she brings out some of the rest of it too, because, again, it seems, and probably makes more sense to them, it did seem kind of like a big jump to me, where she suddenly, because again, she's like, are you gonna play? And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make a move against him. And she's like, what? You're crazy. And I was like, how do we suddenly get here? Like,
it was a little bit rushed, her whole, like, now you're making a move, which is totally just, what move? Nothing's been done at all, whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
Thomas asked Harry to come and help about a curse with Genosa, which...
And I do get that it makes more sense from them, because they know what's been...
Their point of view is seeing, Arturo's production is cursed, which helps the White Court.
Yeah, but again, we presume, but I mean, again, just in that, that instance of, with... that being the only thing said, she seems to suddenly draw more, I'm like, even though you guys know what your whole internal politics is going on, I'm like, that one comment suddenly makes you like, oh, now you're making a move, and now this is going to happen. I'm like, how do you know he's not just...
She goes further to say, a little bit I think in this chapter a little bit later, all of our siblings, I've heard so many brothers and so many sisters
that's in
say
this conversation,
this exact same thing to me. Just help me take down Dad and it'll all be okay, right? So I imagine she's gotten used to watching this whole situation play out where eventually my younger siblings always want to go fight Dad, and I'm just waiting for the moment that they all turn on Dad, and then I'm...
Yeah, and exactly, right, because she's like, your timing's horrible. She's like, the Wraith's position is already precarious among the houses, right? So we've got other, she mentions Malvor and stuff like that. She's like, they will just, right, if you start making any civil war here,
Lots of political drama going on.
Lots of political drama, right? And
That
that's when he's like,
comment
Dad's
there,
losing it, and that's
though?
what she said, you know, me, I've heard, but yeah.
There's a comment right in there, too. Your timing is horrible. We know for a fact that Thomas is only, like, in his 30s right now. He's just, like, right at the cusp of 30, give or take right now.
Yeah.
When did you want him to do this? He hasn't been around for a couple hundred years, Laura.
Well, that too.
He's not a 300-year-old vampire who could have done this 200 years ago. He's literally 30 years old.
And this is her point. This is why most of them don't, because they all decide. And again, I think that plays to the whole nature of these of this branch of the vampires and everything like that, and then specifically these families and the whole bit is that obviously it is a lot of scheming to get to the top. You don't just have a nice hierarchy by birth. You know, Dad's gonna die. I mean, they're vampires, but whenever he steps down or gets killed or whatever happens to vampires,
house Raith.
And then it's gonna pass down to Thomas, and then it's gonna pass down, right? It's you scheme and fight and
They're like the Game of Thrones
just a non-stop killing for that throne.
Yeah, pretty much is exactly. It's whoever can get. And Laura has been around long enough to see and do some of this stuff, so she's like, I've seen a lot of people try to depose him and take that top spot, and I'm more than happy being number 2 right now because I have seen it all fail time and time again.
Stick to the status quo.
And I'm okay with not getting squashed like a bug because Dad just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he will destroy you.
I love you until you oppose me.
It won't be a slap
then,
on the wrist. You'll be dead.
Exactly, or worse, or whatever, right? So...
But then Thomas even throws in here, too. Dad's losing it. He hasn't been right for years, and we all know it. He's getting old. It's only a matter of time. You're 30 years old. You've got no bases. This is just the only guy you've ever known. Like,
I guess. I mean, unless he's pulling on that whole family, like, okay.
Which he must be.
You know, obvious,
But I still keep, like, sometimes they talk to each other as though Thomas is also a couple 100-year-old vampire. I'm like, he's baby.
He's a baby.
He doesn't know anything.
I was going to say, it is all relative, right? Because, again, in his perspective, I mean, you're approaching that, right? Once you start feeling like 30, you do feel like you've been around for a while, and you suddenly feel like that's when people start making
and for humans, that's great. For vampires.
Okay, but again, right, maybe, Tommy, when you're going through your first human lifespan, you know, again, maybe that 30 does develop the same way. Like, sure, by the time you hit...
Summer feels like a really long time when you're 6 and nothing at all.
And I was literally just going to say, like, right, like the 4-year-old now, is she starting to, you know, get those retained memories and things, you know? And again, it's absolutely to hear her on the cusp of turning 5 being like, I remember when I was little and I went, you know, like, when I was like just a bit, you know what I mean? It's like last week, you know, but it's like, for her 2 years ago was like when she was such a little kid and couldn't do anything. Now there's like so much she can do, you know? So I think sort of perspective-wise that way too, I can see how, again, most of us in our lives would be like, well, if I just watched my dad going nuts for like the last 10 years, that is a significant portion of your, you know, it's a third of his life or whatever, right? So
maybe, but I take it to be, I mean, essentially any time that he's been able to be aware, right? You get your memories, not as, you know, a 4-year-old who's got memories of maybe the last year or so, but the memories you can retain as an older child, teenager, adult is generally at about 5 or, you know, 5 to 8.
She's just getting to that age too, that 4 or 5 where she's starting to, exactly.
But like, just getting to the age where she's going to start creating the memories she has forever.
Yes.
She doesn't, everything up until this point is basically she's not ever going to be able to remember it again.
Short-term memory,
At all.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for Thomas, essentially, you know, up until 5, 6, 7, 8, all of that's nothing. So a third of your life is still...
Well, again, it's almost more like 2/3 of his life because, or half of it, I guess, or whatever.
But that's what I mean, though. Is it's still not significant.
Yeah.
In terms of a vampire who's been around for like 1,500 years or whatever it is.
Whatever they go for. Yeah, no, I agree from that point. But like I say, considering this is his first time around, I can see how it would feel significant to Thomas. And yes, you're right. Sometimes I have to kind of stop and remind myself, because you're right. Sometimes he does seem like he's, you know, again, like 300 in there with some of his other, you know, family members, as opposed to, you know, exactly that. Yeah, no, it's not. But... anyway, so yeah, he's all like, oh, we all stand together. And she's like, we'll all die together. And he's like, well, no, if you do it, then we can all stand up to it. And, you know, I mean, and she's like, and leave you to his mercy. Like, if he finds out, she's like, that'll be worse. The nicest thing I can do for you is just kill you myself right now.
Yeah,
like,
he makes an attempt to be like,
don't do me any favors.
If the whole family turns on him, we could win this. And she's like, yeah, no, the fuck we can't.
Yeah.
So he tried. He failed.
Still not certain. Which, again, speaks a lot to Papa Raith. How powerful is this guy that Lara has been around for a couple centuries or whatever? We don't know exactly. But I think that speaks to how powerful is Papa Raith, that he's been around for a couple centuries, or that Lara has been around for a couple centuries and has never felt confident enough to make that move. And then especially now that she has seen, you know, presumably waited long enough until others had done it, now she's definitely like...
well, and if he's losing his marbles, like Thomas says, then he's even more unpredictable.
More unpredictable, but again, he's got enough power. Like, she's seen him do things that she's like, I don't even care about what the...
But the vampires...
I don't think that weakens him enough. It just, like you say, makes him unpredictable, maybe volatile, but she's like, not necessarily any weaker or...
The vampires and the fairy court are the two supernatural factions that we know the best.
The biggest, yeah. The best of it, yeah.
And, yeah, if you've got a king for each of the vampires, then that means 3, kind of 4, vampire kings have to be running around.
Red, black, white, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we know the queens, obviously, their whole 3 and 3 and whatever else, right? So, yeah, if you're going to be king of not just... one or the other. We need to stand up and be, you know, an equal partner to two other kings, essentially.
A supernatural nation superpower.
Right, but that's what I mean, though, is it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, the king of all the vampires, when it's just one faction is just fine, whatever. But you've got 3 different factions. That almost makes me think that you've got to be even more powerful as a stance, because there are so many different moving parts into all, it's like all these overlapping Venn diagrams and things. But
good old Venn diagrams. Yeah, no, I agree, because you're right. Not only are you keeping on top in your own little cluster and your home politics, now on the world level, exactly. And because we haven't really clearly seen, like, since the start of the Vampire War, now we kind of see, right, like at Bianca's thing, she was like, hey, blacks, come kind of work with me. And they sort of expected once the war started that the whites would just fall, like, okay, well, we're all vampires. Now that makes us all on the same side, right? Enemy, my enemy. And the whites are kind of like, we don't know. But again, you can see that they don't automatically just fold together and work together all the time, right? It's like they sort of only seem to come together in this, where they've got a shared purpose or you know, whatever to go against, right? So yeah, I could see you definitely always fighting against those other ones for, I'm sure, a certain level of it's hierarchy or dominance, and who's more powerful, the black court, the red court, the white court.
It just suddenly reminded me of like how our Canadian politics works, because in Britain it's mostly just 2. You've got more parties in Britain and America. You've got more, but it generally comes down to just 2.
Two-party system, yeah.
And same with America. It generally comes down to just a 2-party system. France is a little bit more diverse than that, but in Canada, we're a 3-party system. Significantly. We've got more than that, but who cares? They're never going to get any seats, really. Significantly. Anyways, in Canada...
Well, we used to be a 2-party system. Now we've expanded to 3. So in another few...
We've been 3 for a while, though. My point is, though, is that in Canada, a lot of the time, when one is winning, the other 2 join up to fight against them, so that they've got still a majority against the other side.
Yes.
And so it's just like, okay, well, the blacks have no choice but to join up with whoever will take them, because they're only like 5 guys anyways.
They've been.
But the white court is enough of a power on their own that they're like, we don't need to stoop to your level at all. We're fine. We haven't. No,
yeah, it's like we don't have to take a deal. We have options. We have choices. We can choose to be a part, or we can choose to.
You didn't come and ask us if we wanted to start a war.
Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, they're not just left to take.
This is not like every time Britain or America goes to war, and it's like, hey, Canada, guess who's allies? You gotta come too.
But, yeah, right, so. Yeah, but anyway, so this is, that's what I started to say before, the confusing part, and that Lara and her come hither thing. Because you're like, Harry's really confused, because then Thomas starts realizing that he's not getting anywhere really talking, that she's not going to listen, she's not on his side. So now he's got to try and convince her to not kill him. What was that shiver for?
Just turning on your sex whammy on your siblings to get them to listen to you. Like,
and this is why,
and I think that's next chapter, actually.
No, it's right here.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, it's just above
it's
the end.
right at the end.
Right
I see
at
it now.
the end
Okay,
of
sorry.
it, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't.
Nope, that's quite all right.
I thought it was. I thought it was the start of the next one. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay.
But exactly then, yeah, and that is part of what is so creepy and perverse about the Whites is exactly that, right?
Like, it's their weapon.
You got an inkling.
Which I get.
Well, we got this faint inkling because, like I say, when Inari is talking to Dad, and you're like, that's kind of weird that she's confiding, And again, I'm like, he's obviously making some kind of inappropriate joke comment about her hooking up with him when most of the normal world and most parents are like, the fuck you are at that age, right? So we're like,
or at least just you don't talk to me about
or
that.
just you don't talk to me about it, right? So you get the teenies, and then exactly you get here where Thomas starts putting on the whammy. And that's when Harry is like, I'm glad it wasn't directed at me, because that would have been, he's like, I can even notice the effect here, and I just am not, I'm like, not even a little bit bi, I just don't, he's like, I like girls all the way, and this is already, right? And then, yeah, exactly, the fact that Thomas and Lara are brother and sister, and you're like, this is how, I don't like your family.
See, the Dresden Files actually keeps, a little bit less sexual than a lot of other supernatural content, because most other, like, you see the TV show Lucifer sleeps with everyone. It doesn't matter what their gender is at all, because he's the devil. He tempts everyone. He's interested in anyone who is willing to come into temptation, right?
Yes.
And even there's a couple more in, like I found there's, a couple episodes even in Buffy when it's like they don't even care. It's just like, come join the dark side. We don't care. It's whatever. It's fine. And tons and tons and tons of other content too, where it's like, the supernatural from the hells demon. They don't care about
Captain Jack.
Sexuality. Okay, they'll just tempt whoever they can do, right? But
you don't even have to be human, let alone male or female,
right? Just stretched out piece of skin is.
Yeah. Hopefully she wasn't then though, but yeah. Although. Then he is too. He's just a much larger piece of skin. Face of Bo.
I know. His was like, His
was kind of almost
it's a weird timeline.
Very, I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, regardless of all that, is that yes, this is not as sexualized in the same way as.
Not quite. It's just a little bit like, Thomas is into women. Yeah, Laura's into men. They don't sleep with the other gender unless they just need to, their whammy accidentally leaks out the edges and stuff.
Or they need to manipulate someone at the time,
right,
or they're on the set and it's called for, or whatever. But
I mean, I see it more like in this case, not so much like that incestuous, like as it's a power grab that just happens to be sex based.
Which, okay, to a certain point, I do agree with that.
Influence.
Their psychic powers is their thing.
This is what's so hard, right? It is what is entwined and what is not, and what is separate and what is.
Yeah, it's
like. It's all wrapped up together, and all of it's not at the same time.
They're monsters, okay? They're vampires 100%. It's just no matter what it is, it's wrong and it's creepy and bad.
Whatever, yeah.
But yes, it is a little bit hard to separate exactly which I know this is wrong. I'm just having a hard time placing exactly how.
Yeah, or just that they have no qualms crossing that line or whatever, and exactly.
Use them if you got them, I guess.
I guess. But and I will say, we do see at later points, we occasionally bump into other white courts, and you will see there are some there that are less discriminatory, and again, that it's not, again, it comes down very much to the personal tastes and eyes or whatever, right? That some of them are very fluid and very don't give a crap, and others, again, in this particular instance, right? Harry just normally does not tend to lean that way, has not normally been attracted to a guy in any way. Thomas, generally, he's got Justine, and that is that, and so this whole thing is just a little bit like, this is just extra weird. Like, it's bad enough when Lara does it, because I know she's a monster and I don't, but it's even worse when Thomas is doing it, because I really don't want to be... And then, but much like Harry was kind of able to pull back and be like, hey, recognize when Lara was doing it, being like, can you please not? Lara, where they think for a second that she's maybe, and they're like, oh no, must have just been the breeze. She's like, the breeze. She's like, yeah, cut that shit out, I'm not falling for it. And it's like, fuck.
Easier to see through the mist when you know there's mist.
That too, right? But yeah, you get the whole little thing where she even tells him, right? Because again, he just casually had his hand behind his back this whole time. Like, I mean, I know some people do kind of like tuck it, but I was like, really, there's very few. But I just like how his hand has just been casually, in this whole showdown situation, and then she's like, take your hand out, please, and then Harry's like, oh my goodness, he's got a gun hiding back there.
As a final note here, I know we're wrapping up this chapter, but I do like that, like, Harry doesn't even get to say his own final words. Laura's like, you speak for him, bye!
Exactly.
I'd be so offended. I don't even get to say my own final words.
I can see in some ways, just from the political aspect of why Lara would choose to just dispose of both of them, because like Thomas is officially a traitor to the crown. And if you're looking at it just from a point of royalty, there's like, I'm trying to remember the word for it, because like it's not heretic, but there's an actual term for like when you
treason, traitor.
Yes, maybe it's treason. Yeah,
maybe I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I sort of get where you're going, and now I'm tickling my brain. I feel like
you're talking about overthrowing your king.
That's
bad.
That's basic treason. I was thinking more in a familial, but yeah.
Just looking at it from a royalty sense, like that's worth.
I don't know if it's any of those synonyms.
You know, I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night and be like, I know what it is.
Always.
Don't worry, the Discord will get to it before you.
Of course, right.
It's not on there.
The word you are looking for is
right. But yeah, exactly. It's even just. I don't even want to whiff of this. Like, I don't even want people to think I knew you knew this, let alone that I was involved in it. Exactly. That whole, tarred by the same brush. They're like, I don't even want to get
you're a traitor. Off with your head.
Yeah, right. She's like, I don't want to be associated with this at all in any way, shape, or form. So exactly. She's like, I'm going to just get rid of you so you can't cause trouble. And I'll just get rid of the wizard too, because he's a wizard. We don't really like him anyways, and you brought him into this, so I don't know exactly what you brought him into, but again...
Everyone seems to be pissed off with this guy, so I'll just help.
Before I find out if he's, like, really involved or just peripherally involved, we'll make all of it go away, and then nothing has to worry about nothing, and it's all...
She is a dutiful daughter.
She's a dutiful daughter, and just a deadly, domineering badass that just is like, oops, oh well, love you, but oh well. I'm like, I can't throw out, like the art picture my kid made in like, kindergarten anymore, but she'll be like, go from protecting you to killing you in like the bat of an eyelash.
Thank you to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us do what we do. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at patreon.com/freeflowrambling. Chapter 16. Lara shoots Thomas when they attempt to make a break for it. Thomas manages to distract Lara and save Harry and allow him to get a fire spell off at Lara. As Dresden tries to get Thomas to safety, he mistakes Inari for an enemy, and she knocks him nearly unconscious. Lara comes to take over the scene when 3 Black Court vampires arrive to threaten everyone there.
I like how he starts off, he's like, I've been in hairier situations. Actually, it's kind of depressing how often I am now in these situations.
Hairier.
Right? But yeah, they try to do the whole thing, so... little standoff with Supercharge. So, so Thomas has shifted slightly so Harry can see the gun tucked into his waistband. So he's like, aha, we're going to make a move here. So Thomas is like, whatever, and does his, I'm going to jump to the side. And Harry's like, I feel super cool, we're doing the partner thing, and tries to grab the gun. And the fucking gun is in his pants are so damn tight he can't get the gun out. Epic fail.
It is a fun moment. It just sounds so cool, and then it's not.
Right? You're just waiting.
Scooby-Doo gang.
Right? You're like, Harry, yes. And you're like, well, Thomas obviously is the slick supernatural power, so you know.
It's gonna be this great 007 moment.
Right? No, fucking tight pants on the fucking...
I do appreciate that Jim Butcher writes in Harry to fail as often as he does.
Yes, it is not just exactly. He is not
make
just
it easy.
The never, the unfelt.
Massively alternative difference is that I've been reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and the way the old books are written compared to new books is like, the 21st century way of writing a book is that authenticity comes from failure, okay? Your readers are going to relate more to a character that has adversity and doesn't win the day every single time and that does fail.
Oh, yeah, I stuck my foot in my mouth like that once, too. I still remember and cringe every time. Yeah, I got you, Harry.
Count of Monte Cristo, this guy just wins and wins and wins. He's the best swordsman and the best shooter, and he's the richest man at the party, and he's the most cultural, and he's the most well-traveled.
Right.
And he owns the best horses, and he owns the most famous house, and he's gone every invite to every ball, and he's
Spoilers!
It's just like...
Everyone read this
Yeah, there's a lot more two-dimensional.
Totally, and like
the melodrama of it.
Noticed it in other books too, like
Archetypes.
older books where
Archetypes,
like, and again, it was a great book. I enjoyed it the whole way through. I wasn't going like, wow, this is really bad writing the whole time, but
Yeah.
the discrepancy was like
That to you was a big
Jesus
noticeability.
Christ.
Yeah.
It makes it harder to relate if you're not part of that class.
Yeah.
Well, it creates a sense of this otherworldly being,
Well,
even if they're supposed to be just a
okay, but
human
you know
guy.
what's going to happen because he wins every time, right?
Yeah.
So here we know ultimately we're like, okay, well, Harry's got to win every time. He's the hero of the books, and again, we're on book 6. Obviously, he hasn't been defeated yet. But again, it gives you those, which parts are he going to win and when and how?
Well,
is it going to be, like the first couple books, he had some big wins. He came out, he beat the big bad boss, boom, he moved on. Death Masks, scraped by the skin of his teeth. Like he says, he's like, I don't really win this one, I survived. So we're like, Harry's gonna, and you're like, okay, he did. But so much of that was not a big win in that one, right? So that, like you say, right, it's not just like that Harry's untouchable and no matter what, he's going to save everybody, right? You start going like, oh shit, like is everybody going to make this out of is everybody going to make it out of this or whatever, Like, is Thomas going to die in this book because Harry can't protect him from his sister?
I actually did just see on the internet the other day someone saying, I hope 12 months, which will be book 19 in the Dresden Files, is the first book 18. Battleground is 17?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18.
12 months will be book 18, and I'm really hoping that it is kind to Dresden because it has been so fucking bad for so many books in a row. This poor guy never gets a break. I'm feeling horrible now at the end of all these books because it's just been getting... And yeah, like the last few books in the series have had a lot of devastating blows after blows after blows, but for me, reading them, it always seems to be a very well mix of the good and the bad. He gets a win and he gets a loss by the end of the book. I wasn't reading it quite as depressing, but this person was like... It's been horrible the last few books. He gets nothing. There's never any wins ever since Changes. And it's just like, which is, to a point, I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, I would like to see Harry have a couple more big wins as a final, like, the book is done and everything's gonna be okay. Unfortunately, where the universe has been built.
Yeah.
Until we blow up planet Earth. Sorry, Harry.
Yeah, well, and for sure, I mean, that's what I joke about when saying, well, I could never be a good author because you know what I mean? I'm like, I would have such a hard time, like, shitting on my favorite characters or my leads or, killing off people or, I'm like, I want them to be the best. Of course, Harry's going to have the best house and the best car and you know what I mean? So I'm like, I appreciate that in authors that they can, let them lose sometimes and not make them, because you're right, it does make it. But again, the flip side of that is you're right. We start getting a lot of that with Harry when I'm like, okay, I get he's quote unquote only human. He's a guy living his life. He's got all this stuff stacked against him. But you're right. Sometimes you're like, can you just, instead of making him like the unwilling or the just barely hero, just make him the big goddamn hero, let him just save the fuck, again, he's always like, wizards can do this and wizards can do that, and then he's always like scraping. I'm like, no, come out where you're just like, the other guy is the pathetic bug you stomp on, you know what I mean? You were just like, I encounter this shit in my sleep, and you have your shit on you and it's working and you're well, as opposed to like, I didn't have my shield bracelet, I had to hide behind a garbage can, and
A trait of like horror and thriller books that sets them apart from most other genres is that a lot of the time everyone does lose by the end of it. Whether it's a movie or a book, everyone does just end up dead and defeated and...
last man standing,
exactly.
kind of, yeah. And then that
it's not
person
the
doesn't
same-
want to be alive because they've got survivor's guilt.
Exactly. It's not the same overcoming adversity and, oh my god, we saved the day, and oh my gosh.
It's not your rom-com.
But a big thing that sets it apart is that you don't win and that there is no overcoming the day and everyone loses and is dead by the end.
Yeah, there's no cut and dried black and white.
Exactly, and there's a certain point where, just as the Dresden Files goes on, it gets a little bit like, Okay, bro, where the hell is the win?
Less noir and more like, horror genre kind of a thing.
We're supposed to be fantasy novels. Everyone wins in fantasy novels.
Exactly. That's what I want a little bit. And I right, the same thing, like why Game of Thrones and stuff like that, right? I'm like, I don't want too much realism with my, fantasy media, whatever, right? I'm like, I want that escape. I want that. I'm like, a little bit of heart. And I mean, I get that's part of the challenge too, that if Harry just won all the time, where would be the, right?
You wouldn't be able to relate to him.
Well, you wouldn't be able to, but nothing would happen.
He's a wizard. Like, how does a normal person relate to a wizard?
Exactly.
By making him fail.
But I mean, again, right, if Harry always had every magical tool he wanted when he wanted it.
He'd just be Gandalf.
But you know what I mean? But exactly, there wouldn't be any conflict. He would never get himself into any scrapes or situations. There wouldn't be, right? So I'm like, I get some of that conflict and tension to make it work and have a reason, like, okay, well, how can we make it not just win the day all the time because Harry could? But at the same time, I'm like, part of me is like, but with these things, I'm like, but that's why you have the wizards, because they can just...
And one point to that, too, is that actually it can kind of be, not necessarily cathartic, but sometimes it is poignant when they all failed. Sometimes that's just the way the story has to go. I Am Legend, the book, not the movie.
Yeah.
The main character dies in that one, okay? It's been out for a long time, okay? The main character dies at the end of the book, okay? He spends the whole book fighting the vampires, and then eventually he's like, for what reason?
Yeah.
Everyone on Earth is a vampire now. I'm the last human. What do I want to keep surviving for?
Yeah.
Right? The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Really horribly depressing book, okay? If you haven't read it, it's essentially like just apocalyptic world, and everyone's just trying to make it to the next base camp, whatever, and the whole world is basically turned into the Purge, where you just kill and rob everyone to get enough to survive to the next day, right? And eventually, everyone just kind of like sits down on the road and dies. They're like, what? Why do I keep walking towards anyone?
What is
What's
the point of life? What am I here? Yeah.
What are we doing this for, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain point where I wonder, like, even the Hunger Games, for example, Katniss never wanted to have kids because...
I don't want to put them through
Why
this.
would I put them through this? And then in the epilogue, at the very last book, it's revealed that she's had a baby, and I at first hated it. I was like, she was so vehemently against having kids.
Yeah.
But it was a point that she felt the world had become a better place, that it was safe to raise children now and have them. It was a very big...
Yeah, and
this
that
is
she
a message,
was with
okay?
somebody that she loved and wanted to be in a later choice.
I feel that the world is safe enough to actually do this thing that I once thought was like the cruelest thing you could do to anyone in the universe, was bring them into this universe.
Yeah.
But I do wonder at times if the Dresden Files is just going to be like, there is only one way to end this, okay?
Is it eventually going to get to that apocalyptic end of, One of the things that I hate sometimes, I'm like, you have to have some of that conflict and tension in order to make a story, but I hate when you can tell it's going on for too, right, where it's just, everything is like just a near miss, and it's like, for God's, can you find some other way to make this story work or get, you know what I mean? Like, I hate when it's always like,
George Costanza, where it's just shit on constantly and they never get any happiness, and you're like, what's the point anymore?
Well, part of that, but even just like, where it's literally like they're on either side of, like the sitcom kind of a thing, It's like the guy walks in the front door, somebody leaves out the back, and they're like, oh, blah, 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 and then the guy leaves out the front, and the other person, oh, wait, I forgot that it was, and there's like that constant, right? Whereas like if you just would both walk in the room at the same time, but you're both literally like on the other side of the door from me, and it's like, you got a little bit of that at first, be like, oh, but I'm like, I hate when it's like, there's like half the book or 3/4 of the book, and you're like, this is bullshit at this point. They should have they either
just call each other.
Either it's like you're drawing it out where it's no fun that they haven't, or again you're like, it's just not reasonable. Like, okay, I'm tired of it going on like this.
Yeah.
Let them eat and get on with the rest of it, and that's just the other side of the beat up of Dresden and stuff sometimes too. I'm like, it's definitely poignant. He's had some big moves, and I like the story arcs and the characters, but again, right, I'm like, I don't want it to, as you say, just descend into that. Nothing but that.
Devastation without the payoff.
Yeah, exactly.
So all that is to say that we are not at that moment. He's still fighting to win the day anyways.
Still fighting to win the day.
Luckily enough for Harry, he does have time to say a few words, because Laura shoots Thomas.
Yeah, fair enough. With their mangled, super smooth. Yeah. So,
And he threw her keys at her. Harry's got the ashtray, Thomas has the keys. Crime-fighting duo of the century.
In all fairness, it hurts to be hit by a keys.
It does, and I was going to say that was like for how many years now have they been like, the poor man's defense thing? You walk around with your keys in your fists, and, if you poor lonely women walking home by yourselves at night. But she managed, she gets him in the leg and like in the gut.
Yeah.
So neither of these, one, makes your mobility more awkward, and two, gut wound just in general is going to make everything more.
Ouch.
Yeah, not cool. So, but yes, manages at least to give Harry the chance to launch some kind of counterattack, even though it's like sloppy and messy. And which is funny though, because he's like, oh, I had my blasting rod and everything like that, but it was and you're thinking it's just gonna be kind of like a whoosh I missed, but no, it's the size. He's like, instead of just like a nice neat like lance of fire, he's like, it's not like this 30-foot cone of fire. Like, can you imagine in the studio?
They could see that from space.
Like, how soundproof is your soundstage? Because I'm like, it's almost surprising, because again, you forget those little details, and you're like, given this whole, again, these things happen fairly quickly, but the amount of stuff that goes down here, this fight had to take a couple of minutes or something like that. It's not super instantaneous. Did nobody hear this giant boom and come running out of the building?
It's a concrete building. Also, if you had a flamethrower, that doesn't make noise.
No, but because he does it, because he's like, when you take that instant creation of air, it made a big, huge boom, because he sucked all the, like that thunder lightning, you just suddenly had a humongous thunderbolt.
Maybe. I still feel like a big concrete building. Like, you'd hear something, you'd be like, what the fuck was that? But you're not going out into the night,
And they've made some good distance when they ran.
Well, that's true. They did run away a little bit further. That could be part of it. But I mean, like, yes and no, I get what you're saying. But think about it. Even in a lot of those types of buildings, like, you still hear it when it's thundering. I know, with her stiff-armed Barbie and Ken.
I was just thinking, they're on set, they're like, oh, the earth moved. Yeah, it did, baby.
Bobby's like, I feel much better now.
Does Chicago get earthquakes? I feel like that's the wrong side of the country.
I feel like it is, but I also am like trying to remember. It's like, have they ever mentioned any little ones in like the Chicago or in the Dresden verse, or is that only when there's like supernatural stuff? I
just feel like earthquakes are like
I don't think that's generally
West Coast thing.
Yes, definitely much more. That whole San Andreas fault thing, and my Vancouver's getting some now. But yeah, there are some other places where you get bits. I mean, like, they get tremors somewhere, but like you say,
but all the way to Chicago.
That's exactly my point. Is like, I'm feeling like Chicago is probably.
That seems like America's going underwater.
How often does like Winnipeg or whatever get like Vancouver sometimes gets quakes or aftershocks or whatever, but not usually like Manitoba or Ontario or anything. So
nothing knocking the dishes out of your.
I just feel like if Chicago's noticing an earthquake from California, we're noticing an earthquake from California.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. But I don't know. He just says that it makes it, and I feel like maybe not sometimes when you're in like a big warehousey type thing, but I also feel like a lot of those types of things you do still sort of hear something. So I'm like, if regular like thunder is enough to be like, oh, it's thundering and lightning outside, we're having a storm, that in the middle of nothing, if he suddenly produced this major, and didn't produce it 5 miles up in the air, he produced it like, probably less than 1 mile away from where they were. Who knows? Didn't hear it through the building, didn't hear it through the grunting and groaning, didn't hear it because they ran too far away, but apparently nobody noticed a big, giant, explosion-y sound.
Good. Well, and he doesn't go back to confirm it anyways, so.
True, but like I say...
They may have been like, what the fuck was that?
But I was going to say, maybe they came, like you say, if they ran away a little ways, maybe nobody was like running across the whole complex to find, maybe people stuck their heads out and just didn't see anything, and anyways. But yes, enough time...
so Harry throws up a shield, at least with his bracelet, and saves himself from some more bullet fire, and then Lara disappears somehow.
God damn. Whoosh. So, all that, what is it, standard, like, oh, you're like a vampire now, here's your standard super speed, here's your standard super strength, here's your standard super aim, here's your... Fucking bitch, just...
Your negligee and your cape.
I dub thee now super tart. Go on, but yeah. So, totally disappears. So now he's trying to help Thomas, Poor Thomas. And Thomas is a little bit doing that. I'll be fine. Just go. He's like, dude. Like,
No, okay.
I will be a martyr. Leave me. Leave me.
Here's the part that I hate. Harry's all like, I'm not a doctor. And I was like, you just performed first aid phenomenally.
big time first.
And now you're like, you're on your own, man. And I get it. Okay, laceration and bullets are different, but still, like, he's like, I'm not a doctor, but, and I'm like, bro, you're not gonna do anything for him after you just had like a million amazing ideas for Giselle 12 hours ago?
I mean, he didn't say nothing. He does do something, but yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
I was just very much like, are you not the same guy?
Yeah, right. How bad is it? I don't know, it hurts. You've been shot. It's supposed to hurt. Can you give me something a little more to go on there? But yeah. But again, touching on that whole, like, you know, again, he's a vampire. He can heal. This is not. But again, depends on the severity, depends on the placement. And again, this
I mean, like a hole in the chest is, you know,
is usually, but again,
dramatic. Tony Stark managed.
Right. But I was gonna say maybe.
Let me just use a magnet.
Just like, wait, I can do one of those. I can make a giant magnet, no problem. I just caused like a thunderstorm in like 2 seconds. Or,
Also, do you care about the size of hole in your chest?
That's what I was gonna say. So this is what, right? It depends on that, because a black court, avoiding the heart area, I don't think a giant hole in their chest is gonna do too much to thwart a black court, right? Provided you don't hit that vital heart area.
They're like insects. It's like you can just start cutting off limbs and things, and they just are like, yeah, whatever. That didn't even matter.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
They'll live through the apocalypse.
Yeah.
But again, drawing that parallel to how much more closely human the whites are. They eat, they drink, they breathe, they go out in daylight, like all those things that are. So yeah, they got a little bit more oomph in certain areas. They got this weird psychic thing they can draw off, right? But again,
people actually sleep with them.
As opposed to the black court.
People sleep with the red court too, but yeah, the black court is not getting laid.
the red court in disguise, but not out of disguise, and definitely not the black court, right? But exactly right.
So I feel like Count Dracula was sexy.
Count Dracula was made out to be.
I feel like, I feel like his whole thing was like he was like able to
if this is the same lore, like I think he, like, the more blood he has, the more he could regenerate himself.
Right,
so like if Maverick has enough blood, will she regenerate too?
Before everyone started hanging garlic up everywhere. He was hot.
And so on and so exactly right. But I mean, I was gonna say it plays into a little bit that lore of
Italians have ruined.
But I was gonna say a lot of why the vampire mythos is always the sexiest, because it's easier to get close to somebody and do that, right? Exactly. If you see something like Mavra coming, you're gonna like run away, and whereas if you see something like Bianca coming or like the sexy Dracula, you're like, hey, how are you? Sure, I'll walk down this dark alley with you and go canoodle somewhere. Canoodle.
That's the official term the white court uses.
What a canoodle.
I'm sure it was in Drax Day, okay? Dracula was not going around and being like, hey, baby, you want to come over and watch some Netflix?
Hey, baby, you want to stare at 18th century art?
Want to go watch some sheep graze? But anyways, yes. So Thomas has this bullet wound. So while in theory he can... It's not necessarily deadly, but it is a bad wound, and there's lots of what-ifs. So it's not going to just instant heal. He's not just going to keep running around and doing everything super duper.
With the intent that you were still being hunted. You don't just have an injury and you now need to get home.
Yeah, exactly.
You're being hunted.
Yeah, exactly, right. If that was it, if you just, drive by, and okay, we got time to get you to hospital, exactly, right. So
there's still a lot of
resilient, but just as fragile, so yeah. So, but yeah.
And then there's a woman.
Don't try to move until we know where she's. Yeah, the old sitting duck ploy. That'll get her. But they are. That's the problem, is that they are in this situation. So he figures like, okay, I got to try and get you out somewhere. And it's about to, and all of a sudden he sees more motion, somebody coming, something. So assuming it's like Lara coming back to do the job, he like grabs Thomas's gun and just about blows away Inari. No! Thank God those super vampire reflexes are enough to recognize who's...
I'm on my deathbed, but don't do that.
Right?
I'm going to stop you.
Nuts, yeah, right? I'm like, was it the super keen hearing? You're like, that's not... Because honestly, I will admit, I was going to make a joke about, like, hearing, like, knowing that was, like, Inari approaching. But I'm like, we are in the upstairs of my work, and it is just, like, a wooden stairs. And you can identify almost everybody coming up by how they ascend that staircase. Mm-hmm. It's really funny after. There's one or two people where you're... But almost...
You can do that in any old household.
Regularly
would be like, yeah, those are mom's footsteps. That's my sister's footsteps. That's my brother's foot. That's just how they walk.
Yeah, fair enough. But you're talking about a household with 3 or 4 people. If you know, I'm just saying it's interesting. A place with like 30 people, and you can tell each individual.
That's what I mean, though. Is like people are very distinctive.
They are. So, anyways, point being is it is super themed. Does he just recognize like, oh, that sounds like Inari coming in, or is it like the mystic senses? Is it like I can just smell her perfume? I can see her coming. Who the fuck knows what it was, right? But yes, jostles Harry enough, thank God. But then, of course, this amazingly enough, like, what is your problem, chick? But makes Inari start freaking out. Oh my God, you're trying to kill me! Oh my God, what did you do to Tom? Like,
how did you draw that conclusion?
You assume just because he took a wild shot at you and he's laying over the body of Thomas with like a couple of bullet holes in him that
not everything's about you. Okay?
Yeah, like you must have done this too.
Dramatic teenager.
Oh my God, 19-year-olds, I tell ya.
Man.
I mean, he could have maybe apologized. Oh shit, sorry. My bad. Thought you were her sister.
I'm sorry, I was trying to kill the other one, not you. Old sister bad, young sister you're fine.
For now.
She like clocks him with his blasting rod, like just, that's gotta be one hell of a force to like.
I was gonna say he was
crack it in half,
like, right? Ooh. Like, okay, obviously Harry knows what the not the fragility, but whatever the strength of his wood, the breaking point. Like he's got an idea of what his blasting rod is made of and capable, right? But I'm like, exactly. I'm like, just a few minutes ago, you chased down Thomas, 2 full-grown men, and you're smacking on Thomas with this thing. Because first, you are trying to put down what you think is some kind of like assailant or whatever, because he hasn't realized it's Thomas yet. So he's not being overly, again, he wasn't maybe trying to kill him, but he was obviously trying to be hard enough. And yeah, he's like, here, hold this, and she immediately like karate chops it and snaps it in half. Like,
I was gonna say, Dresden doesn't actually want to kill Thomas. Inari is fully fighting for her life right now, but I guess Harry was fighting for his life earlier too.
Right? Yeah.
But he made it more fragile.
I guess maybe that's just like right? It's like if you had just laid off and just punched in the first place and not you weaken that thing and also, or is this where we make jokes about how hard Harry's like head and stuff is?
If you go to Ollivanders, okay, you're gonna know what the flexibility of your wand is. If you're gonna go out into the woods yourself and pick up any old stick, you're not gonna know the details, what your number is.
Harry should start putting like a steel core in it.
Right? I don't know what that would do to the
magic.
Yeah, I don't know how you have to come up with like
it's all like a lightning rod.
You'd have to come up with like all new like formulas and runes though. It'd be like, okay, now I got to work this around like a wooden and a metal object.
He just has to get a drill.
So what's our concussion tally up to now? Because like he has to have another one if it's like
this dude is dead. He's brain dead.
He's knocked out more than a professional boxer gets.
Neville Longbottom's parents.
I was gonna say Harry's like one step from like the Black Court. Now he's just a walking corpse. Okay, she just stuns him. She didn't actually knock him out, I don't think.
No, it was just a stun, okay? Yeah. He maybe loses a minute or two, but it's a hard
I'm gonna say concussion, but...
Thank God for wizard healing.
Yeah, right? And that's, the only thing we have to go off
I really do respect Inari for action.
I was gonna say...
Yeah, good for you for not trusting this man, honestly.
Oh, honestly, yes, for what you ran into. And again...
She's young, she's sheltered, she has no idea what the hell is going on.
Yeah, and again, I'm like, I don't know that I would have, like, clubbed a dude. But again, maybe if I ran in and saw somebody with a gun standing over my shot, maybe my first instinct would be to swing too or whatever, because I'm like, I never really see, like... going for help or something, but yeah, you're right. Instead of the typical, like, well, obviously she must have assumed he was there to help. I'm like, actually, yeah, no, the real circumstances, if you walked in on that, was.
You're the bad guy,
You're the
Harry.
bad guy. You have, why would you?
met this guy and then he tried to shoot me.
Yeah, and exactly, right. So, yeah, kudos that exactly. It wasn't even just like a runaway and flee thing, is that she fucking nailed him. Her. And then snapped it,
things
and
get
then-
worse.
And then things get worse because they always can.
Enter black vampires.
No.
No?
Re-enter Lara.
Did she come back first?
Because now
Oh, yes,
Inari's
okay.
got the
While
gun.
he's stunned.
Yeah, and drops the gun and all that.
Never
so
mind.
Inari picks up the gun, and then, oh my goodness, here comes Lara to save the day. Oh, Inari, give me the gun. Let me look after you and Tom. No, she's the one trying to kill her. Why would my sister? You're the one standing over my half-dead brother.
Which is, again, I would trust my sister.
I would
100%.
absolutely.
Why would my sister be trying to kill my brother? That's crazy.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I would 100%.
Random
Big sister comes
Stage
in.
producer who doesn't know how to do his job? Totally suspicious.
Right? That man eats meat. Like, he's a killer already. You know that.
He was already talking about killing pigs and cows earlier.
He was, yeah.
Sociopath.
So, yeah. Ugh. So, yeah. Exactly. So, oh my goodness. Okay, Lara, here, you take over. You fix it. No, don't leave me alone here. And then we get more things jumping in from the shadows.
The wizard and 3 whites to boot. This would be entertaining. That would be really, really like a treasure for them, honestly.
Yes.
It's a little present there.
That is.
A little bow.
Seriously. Just
Right?
really happy accident.
And what a nice, like, sampling. You've got, like, the oldest, and then...
the next 2 youngest.
I was about to say somewhere in the middle, but you're right. Thomas is probably the second youngest between
Yes.
30 and 19. Yeah, damn
We
it.
haven't gotten to that chapter, but I did the math on how many kids Raith has had.
Yeah. But I was just, I was like, damn it, wait a second. See, there's me going that you feel like Thomas is older somewhere, but I'm like, yeah, no, he's really not in the middle of anybody there.
30 years old, and then the next one
So-
is 19-year-old Inari.
Yeah, which is reasonable but yeah, so you're right, the 2 babies.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to think of Thomas as like the baby of the family. Even though he's referred to like his little brother and this and that, but right?
Yeah.
But it's just, I guess when you meet somebody at 30,
Yeah,
you don't
right?
think of them as like the baby, you know?
To be fair, he is, I mean, this isn't in the episode, but he is Harry's older brother. He's just not
Yes.
he's Laura's
Right.
younger brother.
Yes, yeah, and that too, right? But,
Yes, and in true Butcher fashion, we have to layer on another complication that the Malachio is starting to form.
right.
Oh, right. That too.
Of that. Yeah.
Poop, and more poop. Poop!
Oh. Yeah, okay, so it does end up here. So, yeah.
Sunshine, lollipops, and
Black cord sucking out your entrails. Ooh. Yeah. So, yes, so now he's got the standoff again with Lara, who's already half killed them.
great.
Now he's got to
I
try
love
and...
this place.
Right. Porn movies are the best. This is total dream job. Thanks, Thomas. And yeah, now here
Hey,
comes the guy who...
I came to work today to get fucked, and I'm gonna.
You're right.
That needs touch. This concludes our episode 12.11, The Game. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnallys.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
We sure are.